Why did we go to Iraq in the first place?
Well, you had a very strong president who was riding high after 9/11, and the Congress allowed him to do it, gave him the authority to do it. I think many congressmen thought it was a mistake at the time, but a lot of people voted for it.
Why did they vote for it if they knew it was a mistake?
Well, I think it was because of a national feeling that somebody should support the president.
Where did that national feeling come from?
It comes from the view of the people, and the people.
Where does the view of the? Where do people
after 9/11? The American people were strongly believing that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that he intended to use them. They believed that he had been in league with Osama bin Laden and the terrorist acts.
Okay,
it took 3 or 4 years before the American public became fully aware that they'd been lied to by the President of the United States.
Okay, but where did the people of the United States get that opinion to start with? Wasn't it from the media?
Well, I think there's something that most of the American people get their news now from television.
Okay.
Yes, the media.
Okay. So if these congressmen thought it was wrong, but yet they saw the media going a different route.
Congressmen and senators tend to want to do what their constituents, the people, want them to do. And in this case, because the media was not critical of what Bush was saying and his lies were not discovered, even the New York Times went along for some time because they had that reporter that was guilty of misconduct. But the American people, public opinion, to some extent, is framed by the media. And in the media, in this case, was not critical of the president for several years.
What about the congressmen and the senators? Was their opinion also being framed in the same manner as the people, the rest of the country, or did they know better?
No, I think that many congressmen were willing to take the president at face value initially. I think the doubts started to grow in 2004 and 2005, but it really wasn't until 2006 that the elections reflected a disregard for President Bush, and of course that's increased since the 2006 elections.
Okay. At that time there were people in sensitive positions. We are going to name few of them tonight. Like, Paul Wolfowitz, like Richard Pearl, like Douglas Feith, David Wormser, Scooter Libby, all these people, and many, many more that you know of. Very much this congressman and we, by the way, been saying the same thing, that these people were in these positions mainly to remove Saddam Hussein from power. Do you see it that way?
Yes, you're speaking of the neocons, and they were in power. Don Rumsfeld, the vice president, Douglas Feith, Richard Pearl. There were a whole set of people that had that belief that they wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, but most of these people that we named, take out Rumsfeld and Cheney, but the rest of them, like Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl, Douglas Feith, David Wormser, Scooter Libby, all these people, they happen, we call them neocons, but and we can use a different term. All of them are pro-Israel Zionists.
That is true.
Okay, so if that's true...
That is true, and there are those who you really wonder sometimes whether they don't put Israel's interests ahead of those of the United States.
Okay.
To go to war was made by that, but I think that the refusal to accept the reality that the war is not in our best interests has had had some result from the influence of AIPAC. I do think that. I think AIPAC is dedicated to see that the United States follows a policy that supports Israel, and they devote great efforts to that. They put lots of money into it. They try to influence the elections of members of Congress and the Senate, and they've been very successful up until recently in defeating any member of Congress or the Senate who spoke out critically of Israel. So there's no question of the influence of the Israeli lobby. They are the most powerful lobby in the United States. I I've said this, that if you rated the strongest lobbies, it wouldn't be the oil lobby. You'd put the Right to Life lobby and perhaps the gun lobby down at a rating of 1 or 2 or 3 or 5. But you'd put the Israeli lobby at 100 because they care deeply about Israel, and they put their money and their efforts into defeating any member of Congress who would be critical of Israel. In fact, AIPAC's probably most important impact on American policy was the defeat of the first George Bush in 1992. Bush had come out in 1991, and he said, Israel, you've got to be fair in the peace process, or I'm not going to give you the $10 billion in assistance that you were entitled to under the act of Congress. When he said that, he referred to the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, which was then convened in Washington in September 1991, as those people. And from then on, from September 1991, you had the major Jewish organizations working to defeat George Bush and elect President Clinton. So the power of AIPAC and what they have done to affect our foreign policy could not have been more credibly demonstrated than when they led to the defeat of George Bush in 1992, after he had been probably as popular as any president after Desert Storm, protecting Kuwait from Iraq in 1991. Any event,
so what did the president?
They use that power, and it's a reality that you have to accept as part of the American military or political scene up until now.
What did the president of AIPAC tell you? You said when you took these positions, what did he say to you?
The head of AIPAC said to me, he said, Mr. McCloskey, we feel you're the most dangerous person to Israel, even more dangerous than Yasser Arafat, because if your ideas take hold in American public opinion, Israel will be lost. And it's a battle of ideas, and they have suppressed the speaking of ideas critical of Israel by defeating any politician who brought them out. They've been very effective at it.
Now, how many terms?
Weapons.
How many
and yet
terms?
No American leader has said, Israel, we're asking Iran not to have nuclear weapons. You have to give up your nuclear weapons. And everybody around the rest of the world can see the hypocrisy of American foreign policy, which says we want to control Iranian nuclear weapons, but not Israeli.
Sir, how many elections did you win for Congress?
Well, I was first elected in 1967. I was reelected 7 times to Congress, and I was defeated in a Republican primary in 2006 against Richard Pombo, a congressman here in California.
Now, do you think your opinion may had any, something to do with you being defeated?
A Senate race. My position that there ought to be a Palestinian state in the West Bank. My opponent, Pete Wilson, went to the Jewish community in the San Fernando Valley and promised that if he were elected to the Senate, he would support the annexation by Israel of the West Bank. That got him a lot of Jewish votes, but he got enough to beat me without the Jewish vote.
In other words, if AIPAC wants to bring a congressman or a senator down, they can do it as they had boasted before.
Israel has a special place, and no politician wants to lose the support and the money of the American Jewish community by coming out and saying Israel is wrong.
Okay. So now we see that Israel is very important in American politics. That's why, again, we saw our current president. He did go to Jerusalem, and he wore which I don't have a problem with the Jewish faith. He wore the skull cap or the yarmulke, and we've seen Obama did it, McCain did it. Everybody, if you want to be somebody in United States politics, you need to get the blessings of Israel. Why is that? And no one is saying,
well,
hey,
it's very simple.
Are they running for Israel or are they running for America?
By a majority vote. To get the majority vote, you don't want to antagonize the Israeli lobby, which will vilify you, will condemn you as being anti-Semitic. That's the reality of it. If that's going to change, it's going to change as the public begins to finally understand that supporting Israel, right or wrong, is going to cost the United States many lives in future wars.